We're sick of these flashy southern cities. Austin, Nashville, Charleston. Psh, you can take your warm weather, your nicely paved roads, beautiful people, affordable housing, and... wait. These places sound really nice. No! We won't be cast in the spell of the trendy town. We want history. We want sports. We want traffic and rats and snowstorms. We're talking about Boston, kid. We're talking about the city of Chicago. Two cities that have been with America for a hot minute. Cities with sports feuds that rival the Hatfields and McCoys. Boston is a city of 692,000 clam chowder eating fanatics. Founded in 1630, the city is older than our great nation. Boston also fought and died to help make America, literally. Paul Revere, the Boston Massacre, the Tea Party, and Bunker Hill are known to all Americans as distinctly Boston-related. Yet Boston has come a long way from its revolutionary past. We care more about Brady and Bird than Sam Adams and Revere. While Chicago can't say they bled for the original Stars and Stripes, the city of big shoulders has experienced a lot since 1833. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes of the Great Chicago Fire in 1871, Chicago developed into a cultural epicenter. Frank Sinatra didn't sing My Kind of Town, Chicago for no reason. Old Blue Eyes don't just croon up for nobody. This city of 2.7 million people, broken up into 77 distinct neighborhoods, has tons to offer. But does Chicago have more to offer than Boston? It's a classic American showdown. One of the nation's first cities against the second city. From the cost of living to sports and the music scene, we're gonna lay out the good and the bad for each city. Let's get it on! Protect your back wallet, people. The first battle is gonna take place in the wallet. I think it was Donna Summer who once said, "We all work hard for the money, so hard for the money. But honey, every city doesn't treat you right." Something like that. If you make $70,000 a year in City A, you might be living a Jay-Z big pimpin' lifestyle. But at $70K in City B, big pimpin' turns into big problems. That's basically what the cost of living means, and as many pop culture music references as possible. Now that you're an economic expert, Boston has a cost of living index of 153.4, the seventh highest in the nation. The median home price is a jaw-dropping $660,000, and the median household income sits at almost $80,000. Chi-Town's cost of living index is only 107.8. That's only the 24th highest in the nation. The median household income is over $65,500, and the average home price is $330,000. Is living near the ocean that much of a perk? Apparently so. The overall cost of living is 20% higher in Boston than in Chicago. Homes are 48% more expensive. Transportation is 3% more expensive. Gas, electricity, and heat are 29% more expensive. Even healthcare costs are higher in Boston. And get this, a carton of milk costs 28% more in Beantown. That one makes sense though. I mean, Chicago is about an hour drive to what seems like an endless landscape of dairy farms in Wisconsin. To borrow a phrase from Boston-born Benjamin Franklin, in this world, nothing can be said to be certain, except death and taxes. The latter portion of that idiom lies in favor of Boston. Taxes can be difficult to compare because each city and state have different tax brackets. But an individual making $75,000 a year in Chicago is paying almost $5,000 more in taxes alone than in Boston. Our guess is that Boston politicians fear the leaves of a certain steeped beverage being tossed into a particular harbor. Long live the Sons of Liberty! Our next city comparison category is a fan favorite. And by favorite, we mean nightmare. Hop in your traffic helicopter. These two congested cities are a doozy. Boston traffic is bad. If there happens to be a Red Sox or Celtics game, kiss your easy commute goodbye that day. Boston, with a comparably small population, ranks 4th worldwide in bad traffic. As a Bostonian, if it feels like you've lost hundreds of hours of your life in traffic, it's because you have 134 hours to be exact. But for traffic, Chicago says, any traffic jam you can do, I can do better. If gasoline wasn't so incredibly dangerous, I bet there'd be a Navy Pier gasoline party. Because when it comes to traffic, Chicago has the world's worst. Well, almost. Only London scores worse than Chi-Town. Probably because of all the double-decker buses and black cabs flying around with Mary Poppins. Chicagoans lose 156 hours in congestion at a bumper-bending cost of $2,618 per driver. That's a lot of gas. We're not done yet. During the morning and afternoon rush hours, the average highway speed in Chicago is a blazing, wait for it, 18 miles per hour. 18 miles per hour? Within 1 mile of the downtown area, the speed screeches to an average of 15 miles an hour. No wonder you rarely see flashy sports cars in Chicago. What's the point? Traffic couldn't be worse in America than in these two cities. And we think it has something to do with an obsession each town has with, the sports. The almighty sports gods have been kind to Boston and Chicago both. There used to be a time when one could point and laugh at sad Red Sox and Cubs fans. For almost an entire century, you could do this. Then, the new millennium came and the curses of the Bambino and Billy Goat were crushed. Championships on top of championships for each city and in every major sport. Each city has a baseball team with certain colored socks. This one might get heated. The Hawks, the White Sox, the Cubs, the Bulls, and of course, the Bears. These guys have brought 27 consecutive championships. The city of Big Shoulders doesn't only produce champions, it produces legends. Ernie Banks, Frank Thomas, Bobby Hull, Walter Payton, Scottie Pippen, Brian Urlacher, and the GOAT, Michael Jordan. These legends were a part of some of the iconic and most successful teams in the history of sports. The 85 Bears and the 96 Bulls are considered the best teams in history of their respective sports. The 2005 White Sox lost only one game during their playoff run as World Series champions. The 1919 Chicago Black Sox, well, they cheated. We can forget about them. Boston hears Chicago's legends and says, well, kid, we got Bobby Orr, Larry Bird, Ted Williams, Tom Brady, and Bill Russell. How about them apples? Them apples are pretty dang good, Boston. They brought the city 40 titles and some of the most dominant era-defining dynasties. The Patriots have won 6 Super Bowls in the last 20 years. The Celtics have won 11 with Russell dominating the 60s. Even the Red Sox, who hadn't won a World Series since they traded Babe Ruth in 1918, have won 3 since 2004. And that is just the history of great players and teams of these cities. We haven't even talked about the historically beautiful stadiums, arenas, and ballparks in these cities. 2 of the most storied fields in all of sports are Wrigley Field and Fenway Park. Let's face it, Chicago and Boston fans are spoiled. But this one comes down to a simple yet unbelievably difficult question. What is the deciding factor? The number of championships or legends? 40 versus 27 or Peyton Jordan Pippen versus Brady Russell Bird? Speaking of Michael Jordan, did you know there was an MJ restaurant in Chicago from 1993 to 1999? No offense to the GOAT, but the restaurant wasn't exactly an MVP of the Chicago food scene. With that said, let's examine both Boston and Chicago's culinary options for our next comparison. Because if we are what we eat, then we are the city we live in. That makes sense, right? So far, we have mentioned Boston's nickname quite a few times, Beantown. Bostonians might not like it, but the nickname apparently derives from the much-loved American dish, baked beans. But baked beans aren't the only food invention Boston has given the world. Bostonians have blessed us with cannolis, Boston cream pies, lobster rolls, and of course, clam chowder, kid. Bostonian restaurants are the beating heart of New England's culinary traditions. There are many, many ways to measure how vibrant a scene is, and one of the most reputable is the James Beard Awards. Given annually, James Beard has honored Boston chefs and restaurants with 21 awards since 2001, making it the 6th most decorated city in the U.S. Unfortunately, the most well-known signifier of culinary excellence, the Michelin Guide, does not cover the Boston area. Boo! Boo! We bet that there would be plenty of Michelin stars given out if there was a guide. On the flip side, Michelin has been in Chicago since 2011. In 2022, there were 21 Chi-Town establishments that were awarded the prestigious honor of a Michelin star. That's the 15th best in the world. One of them stands out above the rest, Alinea. Alinea is often considered the best avant-garde restaurant in the world. Year after year, it retains its rightful place on all of the best of lists. For direct comparison, Chicago nearly tripled Boston's James Beard Awards with 68. But this wouldn't be a piece about Chicago without mentioning deep dish pizza. Lou Malnati's, Pizzeria Uno, and Giordano's are famous for their heart attack-inducing pizzas. Despite the fame of deep dish, most Chicagoans prefer the Pizza Tavern style, a thin, crispy, square-cut pizza. Chicago has also given the world Italian beef, Vienna beef hot dogs, Wrigley gum, and believe it or not, the Twinkie. Next up, prepare yourself to rock, because we're going to take a look at the music coming out of each city. Chicago has a rich history of jazz, blues, and gospel music, and it is also home to the thriving hip-hop and indie rock scenes. Chicago played an important role in the development of jazz music in the early 20th century, with legendary musicians such as Louis Armstrong, King Oliver, and Jelly Roll Morton performing in the city's clubs and theaters. The city's blues scene also flourished during this time, with artists like Muddy Waters, Buddy Guy, and Howlin' Wolf all making names for themselves in Chicago. The 80s in Chicago were all about house music, the genre of electronic music that became a global phenomenon. In more recent years, Chicago's hip-hop scene has produced giants like Kanye West and Chance the Rapper. Indie rockers Wilco and the Smashing Pumpkins also started in the Windy City. Boston has a rich music history and a thriving contemporary music scene. The city is known for its contributions to several genres of music, including rock, folk, jazz, and even classical. Some of the most well-known musical acts from Boston include Aerosmith, the Jay Giles Band, The Cars, New Edition, and of course, Boston. Boston's music scene has been active since the colonial times, with the city being home to several important composers and performers in the 18th and 19th centuries. In the 20th century, Boston became a hub for the Folk Music Festival, with the emergence of artists such as Joan Baez and Bob Dylan, who played at venues like Club 47 in Cambridge. It also just so happens that both cities have hugely popular bands that decided to name their bands after the city that gave them their start. So maybe for our music comparison, you have to ask yourself, which band is better, Chicago or Boston? Are you a hard to say I'm sorry person? or a more than a feeling lover? It's hard to say I'm sorry to either Boston or Chicago. Maybe you have more than a feeling about one of these cities. Let us know which city you think won this competition in the comments down below. From the cost of living to the food and the music scenes, this was Boston versus Chicago.